Hello, and welcome to our 4th episode of Morrison Memories. And we just want to thank you all for watching our videos. And today we've got with us the Wills from up north of Bill's Corner. We have Eldon, Will, and Dee. Do you go by Dee? Or
around here, yes.
Okay. I didn't know for sure. And Dee lives in Tulsa. He retired from Boeing Air in Washington State. And he just moved back here 3 years ago and retired. And how old were you when you retired?
How old was I?
Can
90.
I ask that? 90?
Mm-hmm.
And how long had you worked for?
68 years.
68 years. Now that's a record. Isn't it a record?
No, not really.
Oh, really?
There was a lady who had in 75.
Really?
And
oh my goodness.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she retired, I don't know what year, but she retired at 95 and died a year later.
Oh my goodness.
There's a message there.
Don't retire.
Don't retire. Yeah.
And Eldon lives up north of Bill's Corner, and he's retired from
dairy farming.
Dairy farming.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, 43 years. Dairy with my dad. He started it. Family started it. Dad and his siblings, or no, his offspring.
Yeah.
We all worked together and grew up there. And he dairied about 42 or 3 years also. And then he and I were partners 10 years. And then I did the 43 years. So all total, we dairied 75 years.
Wow.
They're out of the same barn. And now we've rented the land to Randy, and he has beef cattle running now. So.
Well, before we get started on more than that, would you give us some background on your family, how the Wills got here, and where you settled, and do you want to tell that?
I defer to him.
Oh, okay.
Okay. My grandparents on my mother's side were in the land run of 1890. When was it? 93.
1893.
1893. He staked his claim on the farm that we live on, which is a mile north of Bill's Corner on the east side of the highway. He got 160 acres there. Well, what happened was they started out in Iowa. The original homesteaders began to sell their land. And this was cheap land compared to Iowa land. That's why they come to Oklahoma, because of cheap land. They sent their kids down here. And they were able to do that because the railroad had gone in. And they could get on a train in Iowa and end up in Perry.
Wow.
And so that made even moving was okay. When they moved down here, they rented a railroad car and put all their belongings in it. And then they brought it down to Perry and parked the car.
Really?
And actually our family was one of 3 families. There's 2 other families already down here. That was the Ganglers and the Steikens. They were already in Oklahoma.
Well.
So that was, they could help, families could help one another.
Yeah.
And they could give them the information on local Oklahoma land, and then they could help them when the train come in. They could help them move their cattle and furniture and everything that's on the railroad car.
So the Owens, they're the ones that made the land run.
Right.
And that's the farm where you live.
Right.
Okay, now then you have 2 brothers. We haven't talked about them.
Kenneth and Bill.
Kenneth and Bill.
Yeah.
That land, did your grandparents, did they buy that land?
Okay,
or was
they bought Bill bought the first land. He bought my grandparents' land after my grandfather died, and Bill bought 80 acres of land, and that's the home place of the homestead land where the house was built.
Where Bill is?
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking it was where you were.
No.
That's on that side. Okay. And so both of y'all went to Sumner School.
Yes.
Did you go to Sumner?
Yes.
Did you start out at Sumner?
Yes. Yeah. I started in 1937. They deferred me a year because I guess they thought I wasn't real bright, so they figured I needed a year head start. And my 2nd grade teacher advanced me a year, so it caught me up.
Oh, gotcha.
Was that Mrs. Creason?
No, it was Mrs. Pinkerton.
Okay.
In Sumner.
Yeah.
I remember my 1st grade teacher was, now I can't remember her name, but one incident, I wanted to sit in the back row of the school, so she finally let me sit there. Well, the seat squeaked.
Oh.
and I squeaked it for one period. And she moved me up right under her nose right after that, and she wouldn't let me move back.
That's good. At that time, what was Sumner like? We'll talk about Sumner. Sumner and Morrison, they're kind of the same because everybody, the kids come over here now.
Well, Sumner had a store, a couple of churches, and a mechanic shop.
Well, they had an elevator also.
He did just general
Or an
work.
elevator.
And I think that was about it at the school. School's pretty
I
good
think
size.
at one time they had a lumber yard, and they had a
Well, that was well before
way
our-
back.
Yeah.
That's the stories that, like Mel Pancos and people would tell us that at one time they were pretty, but there's hardly anything left up there now. School's been closed,
Yeah.
and
They had an elevator.
there's two churches. There's a Baptist and the Christian church still in operation. Yeah, grain elevator down on the railroad tracks. And anyway,
School was pretty good size then. I think the student body in my first year there was about something like 125 or so. In the high school were the ones who went to World War II. And then the population of the community just gradually diminished through the years.
yeah.
I don't know how many. The last year was in 1944, and we had a graduating class of 9 people, and that was a pretty good percentage of the high school. I think there were 30 some odd in the high school that last year.
I graduated in 57, and there were 7 of us that graduated. But one thing we did do, we took senior trips. Earl was in on the first senior trip that,
We went on one of the first ones I know about.
yeah.
Where'd you go?
Southwestern or eastern Oklahoma. We had rented a van, so there were 8 of us in that van, plus the superintendent and his wife. So there's 10 people. It was kind of cozy. Oh, in those days, you rented a car and you had to pay mileage. It wasn't just a day rental; it was day plus mileage. So we were kind of careful how far we drove. We were gone 3 or 4 days.
We took a senior trip also. I don't know how we was able to do it, but we went plumb to California. Disneyland, is that what it is? And it was brand new in Los Angeles, California area, I think. We took 2 cars. We drove our family car, and Mom was the girl's sponsor, and then the superintendent was the boy's sponsor, and he drove his car. So we had 2 cars, and there were seven students, and Mom and Mr. Gordon went on that trip.
So there were 10 altogether.
Yeah. And we went to Mom when we was out in California. She got acquainted with a cousin of hers and chummed with her. We went to Catalina Island also on the boat. I remember that. Yeah.
Well, did you have fun?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I don't remember the year. Well, it was a bunch of us. Well, okay, I'll start off. Herman Bieberdorf family would go to western Colorado to pick peaches. So one year we got the idea that a bunch of us boys wanted to go along. So it was Kenneth, Bill, and I, and Delmer Rupp, and Sam Rupp. You know these names?
I know the names, yeah.
And all high school boys in Sumner. And we loaded ourselves in Herman's pickup truck, which was about a 1939 Chevy with a kind of a small engine.
Flatbed.
Yeah, and I remember we went up Pikes Peak, but it wouldn't make it. We had to push the thing
My goodness.
at some probably 12,000 feet altitude. You know, air is kind of thin at that level. And we went on to western Colorado, and we looked around. We decided that picking peaches was kind of work. We didn't want any part of that, so we came home.
Yeah.
I know. We go into a restaurant and eat, and there was some kind of a tub in the back, and we collected spoons along the way.
Tell the trash.
Another confession. True confessions. You will, boys. We just don't know about you.
Yeah. I have prepared some comments. Go ahead.
Okay.
This is, well, I'll just read the thing. Starting off, presumably Morrison was started September 16th, 1893. This was the date of the run for the settlement of the Cherokee Outlet. Thousands of persons lined up on the borders of the region to dash toward possible homesteads. Many were successful procuring land. Amongst those was our grandfather, J.D.E. Owen. Mr. Owen had cased the region prior to September 16th and decided on a parcel of land located some 3 miles west of Morrison. Prior to September 16th, the entire outlet was surveyed, platted into mile-by-mile sections, and subdivided into quarter sections. Quarter sections were the land mass size available for each participant. During the survey, some town sites were presumably located as trade centers, located for adjacently located farmers. Morrison was presumably amongst those trade centers. I don't know the derivation of the name of the town Morrison. This needs to be explored. Nor do I know the size of the original population of the town. I do remember seeing a sign on the outskirts of Morrison stating the population 333. Number is probably the result of a 1930 census. I came in the world in July 1930. I'm told that a Dr. Cavett, a physician, had practice in Morrison, and he officiated the birth. I don't remember this occasion, so others would need to verify, but it does note that as of 1930, Morrison did have a physician. Town also had a drugstore run by a Guy Kaufman. If memory serves, this establishment was located near the current location of the bank. At the time, there was a strip of buildings along the south side of the current downtown street. These buildings were mirror images of the buildings currently located on the north side of the street, and the drugstore was in one of those buildings. Somewhere along the street that runs on the east side of the old bank building was located a blacksmith shop. I remember going there with my dad while he was having some plowshares sharpened. In those days, the plowshares were made of not very hard metal and needed sharpening occasionally. Also, somewhere near this shop, there was a well. At one time, there was a windmill on the well. One other memory was going to Morrison. I was not there very frequently. Our family was there for some sort of a street festival. I and my brothers, Kenneth and Bill, this was before Eldon, were confined to the car along with our mother. A neighbor, Sophie Vossick, came to visit with mother. These two incidents can comprise my memory of early days in Morrison. Other business establishments were a hardware store run by Mr. Hauser. This store sold, in addition to the standard hardware items, furniture, dishes, and other household items. It even sold tractors. My dad bought a farm old tractor from Mr. Hauser. This would have been about 1940, 1941. There was probably also a grocery store, although I don't remember such. Town also boasted a newspaper, a weekly. It was staunchly Republican in an area when the Democratic Party dominated the politics of Oklahoma. Family lore states that my uncles in the Owen family ran an auto repair shop in Morrison, possibly in the 1920 time frame. Autos became popular about that time, and they required much repair. Many different makes were available, but most popular was a Model T from Ford. This was because they were cheap, not necessarily because they were very reliable. Most repairs at the time were done by owners, but occasionally an owner did resort to having the work done. Money was scarce, so a payment was not necessarily very reliable. Scarcity of money was a real problem in those days. Much exchange was by barter. Prior to the 1940s, electricity was not common in rural areas, although Morrison did have electric service from a transformer located nearby. Earlier, this may have been hearsay, a local resident installed a 32-volt system. You remember those?
No.
Okay. And he supplied neighbors with power. 32-volt systems are not very strong, so power must have been very limited. Sometime the town developed a town water system. I know neither the time of development nor the location of the water source. Family legend has it that an uncle, Uncle Lawrence, would meet the trains and convey persons to Watchhorn, location of oil exploration during the 1920 timeframe. His service was a forerunner of the current popular Uber service. And I checked the Ghost Towns of Oklahoma book that I have, but could not find any record of such town. Map of the state does not show any town called Watchhorn. Highway 64 was paved probably during the 1930 timeframe. My memory begins about 1936. The route was paved at the time of my earliest memories. Prior to paving US 64, the main route between Morrison and Perry was along a road located about a mile north of the current highway. Both the railroad and paved highway improved access to Morrison from other surrounding towns. Also were boons to the town. Morrison had a school. I don't know when it first opened, but it must have been shortly after initial settlement. High school was developed. Mother was reportedly in the first graduating class. Her birthday was 1906, so conjecture approximates this to have been about 1924. School suffered financially because the tax base was small. Morrison was surrounded by local districts. Oak Grove was one, and I attended there for 3 years. These districts gradually died to population declines, and upon death they were assimilated into the Morrison School District. Population of the region was probably greatest during the early 1900s. This would also have been true of Morrison. Residents were relatively young in those days and families were large. Decline has been gradual, but in the past few years has been an increase due to suburban impacts from Stillwater. And that's the end of our comment.
That is great. Yeah, really, yeah.
You can have this.
Yes. Well, I think this concludes our episode with the Will family, and I'm so glad that y'all gave us your time and shared all this good information with us, and I really enjoyed it, and I know people reading it will too. So that's all for today. So happy trails.
We're thankful we could do it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Adios.
Adios.